everyone. Welcome to the MiraBan UK Film Awards second edition 2020 Q&A session. My name's Joseph Hart and it's my pleasure to be your host for the festival. I'm joined as ever by Jay Manari, who is our festival director, and we're joined today by Jonathan Galland, who is up for Best Film Score. Hello Jonathan, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Fantastic. So just to give our audience a bit of background about yourself, you're an award-winning French composer, being classically trained since the age of 6 as a violinist, and through the music conservatory, you progressively developed a passion for writing music to motion pictures. You completed your MFA in music production and sound design for visual media, with an emphasis on film scoring at the Academy of Art University in San Fran over in the States, and you've done the soundtrack for The Ribbon, which is what you're nominated for. So first of all, let me just ask you, how did you meet the director, Paulinho Cosino, of The Ribbon, and how did the collaboration start?
It started actually in school while I was completing my master's degree in music for visual media. It was during my last semester, and I was brought on as the last composer for The Ribbon for this project. Because this is a project that was in school going from semester to semester, and each semester there would be a new composer who would be brought on board for this project, and so they never finished it. So I told them, look, if I write music for this, I'll finish it, and I can promise you, you won't have to get anyone to continue to work as a composer. So that's how I got on, and yeah, it's been doing great.
Fantastic. And so I think it's safe to say, because you've worked on an innumerable amount of film projects, and most of them have been very, very successful, and I think it's about over 59 international film festivals. So for our audience at home, particularly those who want to be composers or are freelance and as emerging film composers, can you recall the very early years of your music career and sort of how this passion of yours turned into a full-time job?
Sure. I've always been into music. More or less as a young child, was listening to classical music. I am not coming from a family of musicians or artists per se, but I was always immersed in music, and I think it really resonated with me. I'm also a huge, movie fan, and I always wanted to merge the two together, those two passions together. So, as a film composer, I found a way to really make a living out of two passions. So for me, that was like a perfect hit.
Fantastic. And with going back to The Ribbon, with the director and the composer collaboration, were you given any references of sort of the way to write the music and what sort of messages you should put across?
Yes. So the director originally wanted exclusively piano for that score.
Okay.
And I was trying to explain to her how orchestra also has, each instrument has their different emotion. And for her, the piano had the most variety in the sound and the emotions it can convey. And so we kind of thought a little bit about that, because she wanted all piano and I wanted orchestra. We all have different brains. We all think differently. Cool. And so and that's great. That's what we need in a team. But eventually, the whole team rooted for me to write the music as a whole orchestral piece, because I think it works better, that way, to make it look like an actual movie and not like a student film.
I wanted to ask you if you could name a star among many. Could you tell us your favorite composer of all times, if you can name one?
That would probably be Carl Stalling, Looney Tunes composer. Because his ability to write music that we call Mickey Mousing, which is following very closely the visuals with instruments and expressing them literally, his ability to do that in such a short amount of time is just inspiring.
Fantastic. And then for those, for our audience who maybe don't know as much about music as yourself, can you tell us what the difference is for doing a score for an animation short rather than a feature?
Yes, like I said a little bit earlier, we use this technique called Mickey Mousing, and it's actually very complicated because the music changes on a dime, just like the visuals do in animation. So for example, you have somebody hitting a wall or getting punched, and you have this big timpani or cymbal crash. But then right after, you have someone running, so you got to score that as well. When you score live action, it's more like background music that is just meant to support the visuals but not get in the way. And the big difference with animation is the music has the spotlight, is arguably as important, if not more, than the visuals, because that's everything's going on at the same time.
Do you have a preference, just out of interest, do you have a preference of what sort of films you prefer to score for?
I have a big love for documentaries. I love just creating moods rather than just thematic writing and just or Mickey Mousing, like I was saying. Animation is very difficult to do, and I think only a handful of composers can do this consistently through their whole career, and especially for feature-length films. This is, for me, something very difficult to create.
Definitely, yeah. And so, as I mentioned before, you've worked on so many different projects. How many projects are you working on at the moment?
It's hard to tell. I work usually on 4 and 5 projects at a time, because there's different reasons for that. First of all, you don't have the time to just complete one project and then move on to the next one. You just don't have time for that. And the second reason is eventually you run out of inspiration, and what do you do then if you don't have any other projects? So when I'm hitting writer's block, what I do is I just move to the next project and start this, and then writer's block again and move to the next, and this way you can just cycle between projects, and it eventually works out. So I've been working on probably 20 or 25 projects so far.
Cool.
Yeah.
I want to ask you one thing that is, since you are classically trained, and in a way, one thing that interests me, the relationship between music and technology and the use of the new technologies in the world of music. I know the perception of the classical music world and the contemporary one. Would you share with us your opinion about that, and how these two worlds communicate, how technology and music communicate?
Sure. In my opinion, it's never been easier to be a composer than nowadays, because technology is widely available for anyone to just try and write music. The music I wrote for The Ribbon, for example, I did that on a MacBook Air. And that's something that would be unheard of about 10 years ago. And same thing with, editing a whole movie. You can do that on a laptop nowadays. And, this is still pretty new. So I think technology is working really hand in hand with also those who are classically trained, because you have what you call notation programs, which I use and enable you to write a whole score and then have it played by virtual instruments, sample libraries. So these sample libraries have never been cheaper than they are now. When I started writing music in 2005, it was just MIDI sounds, MIDI sounding protocol, very ugly sounding. But if you wanted to make it sound good, you could either hire orchestra, which is a lot of money, or you could buy very expensive sample libraries. So these were the two options. And nowadays you have amazing sample libraries that are very cheap, if not free. So I think it empowers people and composers and musicians to create realistic music, and at the same time, don't need to be already a very established composer or have loads of money. So I think it's great.
Yeah, it's impressive. Actually, what I notice sometimes you have this conversation with there is an opposition sometimes to technology, but a technology, as we said today in earlier Q&A sessions, is not an enemy, is actually a tool that, if is used properly, can make magic, and music is certainly one of these magic.
Yes.
Definitely. Just going on what Jay's just said, actually, Jonathan, I'd like to just pick your brains about. Do you think there could be a point where technology can maybe take over from actually just playing an instrument there and then?
We are getting very close to it, but I don't think technology will ever surpass a composer's mind, because machines can only do what they're told to do, and as composers, we have to find ways to go around problems, and machines don't really know how to do that yet.
Yeah.
So I've seen online, for example, advertisements about like softwares and programs who can write music, and I've had composers friends who were kind of scared of this and say, well, what if it takes over our career and our job? And in my opinion, we have nothing to worry about, because machines will not, they're lacking something essential that composers have, and that's feelings. And you cannot write meaningful music without feelings. So you can write something that's that could be perfect in the sense of following protocol, like a fugue. You can easily, you have software you can write a back fugue very easily, and that's great. But this is probably the limitation.
Fantastic.
Lack of
Jay,
is definitely lack of humanity. So I hope that in this sense we will always remember this difference. As we were saying before in another Q&A session, still about technology, there is a tendency towards a lack of empathy, so towards apathy. Yes. And this is I think, what is the scariest thing. Is not, war, or it's not people being angry. It's more like people not being able to feel anymore. And that's, that's the danger.
Yes.
That nobody, you can create music out of anger. You can't create music out of nothing. You need
right. Right. And I think it's a very important thing in art to have those little imperfections, because that's what makes art. Otherwise, we would all be programmers instead.
Exactly.
Well, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And one more thing I do just want to ask Jonathan, because I know we have a lot of people here who are, like I said earlier, aspiring to make a living out of composing and out of music. You said earlier how your passion turned into a job, but would you have any advice for those watching on how to, in a way, follow their dreams of letting music take over?
Yes. I would say probably the most important thing that I wish I was told when I started was, do not be afraid of rejection, because as a composer, as an artist in general, you're going to get a lot of rejection, and constantly. It's not going to be just at the beginning of your career. It's going to be all the time. There's still films where, John Williams doesn't get the gig, and, that happens. You have to be ready for that. Another thing I wish I knew was, you have to listen to a lot of music, a lot of what's being done by successful composers, but also by those who are not, working in film. You have to constantly be aware of what's around you and take inspiration from anything that surrounds you. And this is a very good advice that I've received later on. And just you have to expand your mind. You have to be completely open.
Fantastic. Brilliant. That's fantastic. Jonathan, thank you so much for chatting with us today. It's been a real honor to speak with you. Good luck for tomorrow with the film score nomination.
Thank you.
And to our audience at home, make sure you do log on to our website, miraban.com, to have a look at not just Jonathan's work, but everyone's work as well. Look into the ribbon and look into the score as well. And also make sure to subscribe, watch all the films, and vote for your favourite short or feature length. Voting does close tomorrow at 6 o'clock, and we'll be seeing you tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. UK time for our awards ceremony. So finally, Jonathan, Jay, thank you so much for today.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
See you guys.